Welcome to Creatively Exposed, a podcast and safe space for Black and marginalized creatives to empower, educate, and uplift you through the final product of self and creation. Bring a homie, share with a homie, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to Creatively Exposed, and it's been so long. Just like quick updates before I open up to this interview that I had with Bruja Tips on Instagram, which is one of my favorite quote Instagrams basically. So check out Bruja Tips. And this is a really old interview that finally is coming to you all, and so I hope that you enjoy the conversation and things for me. So I have a play that I'm going to be a part of this Friday if you're listening anytime the week of the 26th, and I'll put that in the show notes. And I'm just working on projects that I'm hoping to come to fruition. Miami, the last day for submissions, as a love note to any Miami mom and pop places, is also ending on Friday. Also re-adding to the show notes just in case anyone has a love for a local Miami hole in the wall. And it has been a rough few weeks, I think, for the collective, Black folks especially, and so honor the grief. I think grief comes from our capacity to exist and be connected in love, even with people that we don't know. We're still family at the end of the day, and it's okay if you're not 100% all there. And so that is my note. Like, we are in the midst of celebrating DMX's homegoing, murders by the police. Like, there's a lot of heavy stuff going on that we are either aware or not aware. But today is also full moon in Scorpio, and so allow yourself to excavate things that no longer serve you, from the depths of your subconscious especially. So release, but also don't overlook where you are in the moment. And that being said, as always, thank you for listening. I know it's been kind of weird doing this whole bi-weekly thing. It's feeling weird for me too. So hopefully I'll be able to get back into the weekly rhythm. But for now, I got mad dope interviews, y'all. So I'll be sharing those with you, and then we'll see what happens. So have a wonderful week. Be gentle with yourselves, honor where you're at, and don't forget that you are magic. Pas oublier où c'est magique et no te olvides que eres magia. Please check out the interview with Bruja Tips. Welcome to Creatively Exposed. Today I have one of my favorite Instagram content producers, basically creators, and please let the people know who you are.
You're funny. My name is Berenice, and you found me through my Instagram page, Bruja Tip, BRUJATIP on Instagram. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so curious, where did Bruja Tips come from?
Well, I mean, I love to write. I've been writing
Mm-hmm.
and for a long time. I think I recently posted something where I was like, oh, actually, folks, unless you're looking at my website and actually like looking at information about me, even if you go on the page, there's really not a lot of information about who I am. I didn't even used to have my website on Bruja Tip because I felt like I didn't necessarily want it to be an alias. It's not what it was about. I just really wanted it a space for me to just kind of put things out related to my writing and not have to explain things, just kind of be another piece of me, kind of sharing that. And so it kind of started because, I've been following, like, I used to be a big time Tumblr back in the day. I used to love Tumblr because there was just so much happening on Tumblr with how you had access to share things like GIFs and videos and a bunch of cool pictures and all of that. And I remember for a while being on the online world, seeing how folks started developing what they do. And I remember reading witch tips, some witch tips on Twitter and then a little bit on Instagram from Twitter. I've never had a Twitter, even though people tell me all the time you should get a Twitter. I have one, but I never use it. It's just there. But yeah, and I remember looking at only one. I've seen maybe 2 or 3 that say witch tips, and I remember reading it, and so it resonated with me. Some of it resonated with me, and then some of it felt culturally necessarily resonate with me. And I was like, oh, and I kind of thought about it. It wasn't a thing. Oh, it'd be cool to have a Bruja tip, a witch tip, but for the brujas, more culturally content, brujeria, and for me it's on what that meant for me necessarily, So I kind of just put it out there. I made a page. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna call it Bruja Tip. No, I checked if it was available. It was meant to be, I didn't think too much about it. I just kind of did it, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna post things that other people write or things that I like and all of that. And then I just started kind of becoming oh, I want to share this, so I'm gonna write this and share it, So that's kind of how I did.
And I'm so happy you did, because I'm like, oh, I can really relate to this. And there's Spanish and there's English, and I'm like, this is speaking to my soul. So
yay,
I'm happy you did it, because it's right there. It's this is something I never knew I really needed.
I get a lot of messages with stuff like that, and it always affirms oh yeah, this feels good. Feels good, especially when, you get validated.
It really is. So have you always considered yourself a bruja?
I don't think I really use that language to define myself. I mean, I don't even put that in, if I was asked for a bio, that's not an identity I necessarily identify with. I like the concept that it offers culturally, historically, my experience. So I really honor that, and I also know it's really charged historically and racially with how it's been used, and how specifically in the religious community, how that term has been used to really persecute folks in our communities, So I'm very aware of the weight. Well, no, not necessarily. I'll take that back. But the context that it has historically, that term. But I also really resonate with so many pieces of it, right? That connect to connection to spirit, to energies outside of this frequency and this realm, So it feels like I very much connect to that as an identity. I don't necessarily feel I identify or I use it as a term oh, I'm a bruja. Something I verbally come out and say that I am. I'm a lot of other things, but I feel bruja as an identity for me is more of a way of being in my life and being in this body at this time right now,
And so what other work do? You say you write. What kind of writing?
I don't know. I feel I just write. It's not poetry. I feel I don't necessarily define it as that. I used to, I got a bachelor's, I got a master's. My master's was on the metaphysics of holistic transformation and in queer Chicana literature. So I did a lot of just looking at metaphysics and in the way that folks identify and think about healing and experience healing in all these different realms and in all these different ways. So I feel I write about stuff. I used to write a lot about stuff like that, right? And very academically based. And then I think since I left the academy and kind of went on my path and decided that that's not the path I was going to choose, my writing has become more, I don't know, more eclectic for me. Also really influenced by a lot of really amazing folks that are writing poetry in specific ways, you know. But for me, I don't know if I have a category for my writing now. Maybe other folks do. I don't necessarily know. Like if I do, I'm not close to it. I just feel like to write like things that feel like they want to be shared, things that need to be shared, and things that I want to share, you know. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do in terms of like writing. I've been recently like asked by a couple of folks, like, or like contacted by folks around like getting like a book contract or like writing things like that. I've always wanted to write a memoir, you know, and I've always wanted to write like a book. So I have like things that I've written that will one day potentially be in a book, you know. So there's that kind of element of the writing. I don't really write like for like people or articles. I know I got asked to do that for like blogs or other pages or like magazines, but I feel like because of how I write and the process that I have, like that I haven't said yes to those projects yet because I haven't been ready for them. You know, not at least in the past. But you know, like what I identify as is I'm definitely an herbalist. You know, I work with plants and herbal education in the community, so I definitely identify with that work for sure. Like professionally, that's what I do in the community. You know, I offer spaces for folks to deepen their relationship with plants and medicine and their own ancestral healing traditions. So I do that through the work with herbalism. That's the name of kind of like the project that I started a couple years ago, and it's doing really good here and in LA. But it's also like, you know, I've done stuff remotely in other places, and then I'm also like, you know, I'm so I've been doing birth work now since 2014. It hasn't been a long time, you know, but I've definitely been supporting birthing folks for a couple of years now, and recently, and kind of decided to say yes to this path that's kind of been, you know, asking me to go down this path in terms of like taking the birth work to another level. And so I recently decided to enroll in midwifery school. Nice. So I'm going to be doing that soon. So that's a whole other journey going on right now. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of my writing is going to be informed by the experience for sure.
And have you been taught? Has it been passed down through your family? This herbal work, this midwifery, all of these things that you have in touch with, you know, your culture, with the Masaya, basically. Is that something that's always been part of you, or have you fallen into it?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm like, that's an interesting question. Would I identify with it being passed down? Absolutely, you know, absolutely. This medicine that's passed down to me for sure. I remember one time I was at a powwow when in my early 20s, and I was inside the books. There was like a section of folks selling books, and I remember I got a book, and when I went to the little cashier thing or to the person that was charging, the person grabbed my hand and looked into my eyes, and she was like, I felt like like my heart stopped when she held my hand, and she like looked into my eyes. And I remember she looked at me and she's like, oh, like you come from a really long line of like women healers, you know? And I was kind of like, you know, she let my hand go, like gave me my book, and I walked away. And the person that I was with was like, what the fuck? Did that just happen right now? And I was like, that never, you know, stuff like that hadn't happened to me before, you know, like random things like that. Not in that, like not very explicitly like that, where someone was saying like, hey, like I see you, you know? And I was kind of like, dude, I think my heart stopped. I think I like literally felt like my heart stopped. I couldn't, like I didn't breathe for a second, you know? I was like, when she looked into, she took me into like the cosmos somewhere and talked to me and then brought me back.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
You know, like, and I've been connected to plants since I was little. I grew up with like a single parent that migrated here from Mexico, and you know, she took care of us with plants. She didn't really trust the doctors, and definitely like, I mean, took us when we needed to go, but for the most part raised us on herbal medicine and took care of us in that way. And so I've always had like ancestral connections to medicine through my, you know, through my family, through my mom specifically, who wasn't home all the time 'cause she was working, but she made sure that when she was home, she was really taking care of us with the plants. And so that's something that I now, as an adult, as I've kind of like evolved